Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. Trump's attempts to rig the midterms next year by getting Republican states to redistrict may have hit a little snag or two. Although I wouldn't get too excited just yet, it would be absolutely hilarious if the gerrymandering for the midterms ended up being on the side of the Democrats for once. So what exactly has happened? Well, we know that California's Governor Gavin Newsom put forward a proposal to redistrict in favour of the Democrats, but purely as a counter to Texas doing the same thing for the Republicans. It was intended to simply cancel out Trump's gerrymandering attempts for next year. However, the original proposal from California included an emergency brake so that the redistricting plan would only go ahead if Texas went ahead with theirs. But in the event, Californian lawmakers thought Texas gerrymandering was a done deal because they'd already sort of passed it. So they took out that clause from their own proposal, which passed earlier this month. But then, disaster for the Republicans. Some judges ruled that Texas redistricting was unlawful because it was carried out on racial lines. It wasn't simply trying to rig the elections in favour of their party, which seems to be legal somehow. It was designed to stop people of colour being represented, and that is a no-no. Now, the Supreme Court has put a temporary block on that judgment while they consider it, but if they come to the same conclusion, and I know what you're thinking, but they actually might, then we could end up in a situation where California gets its extra representatives in the midterms, because that's now done, but Texas doesn't. And it's not just Texas. Like in Missouri, where the Republicans are doing the same thing, there's a report of a big public campaign against the move, not just from Democrat voters either, which could actually succeed in cancelling that out. I mean, what on earth is going on here? Well, typically, congressional district lines are redrawn once every 10 years after the US Census. But in many states, there aren't any laws to stop the legislature from redrawing the maps as often as they like. This is called mid-decade redistricting. Following the 2024 election, which left a slim Republican majority in the House, Donald Trump began pressuring GOP-led states to do exactly that. The goal was clear: redraw congressional maps to create more Republican-leaning districts before the 2026 midterms. The strategy is straightforward. You can crack a community of opposition voters by splitting them across several districts so that they cannot form a majority in any single one. Or you can pack them all into one super concentrated district, conceding that one seat to make your party more powerful everywhere else. It is a feature of first past the post voting, something which is much more difficult to do with a more representative system. Another reminder that first past the post takes power away from voters, making countries less democratic. That's going to be a bit of a theme in my second video as well. And despite Donald Trump attacking communists, he actually seems to be taking lessons from them. Trump clearly is a fan of Joseph Stalin, who once said that political power does not rest with those who cast votes, but those who count votes. Trump certainly doesn't want political power lying with those who cast the votes next year. Texas was the first state to act on this push. Governor Greg Abbott called for a special session earlier this year. The legislature passed a new map designed to give Republicans a shot at flipping 5 Democratic-held seats. North Carolina and Missouri followed with their own plans to gain an additional seat each. If these maps all hold up, it would give the GOP a significant boost to their majority. On the surface, solid plan. But a little bit of an obstacle: the law. While the Supreme Court has been hesitant to rule against maps drawn for purely partisan advantage, apparently, it has consistently ruled that drawing them based on race is illegal. Racial gerrymandering violates both the 14th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This is precisely where the new redistricting push is running into trouble. Texas, the epicenter of this fight. Civil rights groups sued immediately, arguing the new map was an illegal racial gerrymander that intentionally diluted the voting power of Black and Hispanic communities. In a significant decision on November 18th, a 3-judge federal panel agreed, blocking the new Texas map from being used. In the opinion, the court, which did include a judge appointed by Donald Trump, stated that while politics played a role, substantial evidence shows that Texas racially gerrymandered the 2025 map. The court found that lawmakers had illegally dismantled districts where minority communities were able to elect their chosen candidates. it ordered Texas to revert to its previous 2021 map for next year's elections. Texas immediately appealed to the US Supreme Court. They've put a temporary hold on the ruling while it considers the case, but the legal rebuke is a huge blow to the strategy. And Texas isn't alone. The fight is playing out across the country. In North Carolina, Republican lawmakers also redrew their map to target a Democratic-held district, aiming to turn it red. Lawsuits filed almost immediately, arguing the new map intentionally breaks up a district that has historically allowed black voters in the state's Black Belt region to elect their preferred representative. One lawsuit is even using a new legal theory, arguing the gerrymander is unconstitutional retaliation against voters for supporting a Democrat in 2024. Federal judges recently heard arguments on whether to block the map for the 2026 elections, and there's a ruling expected on that soon. Utah, situation more complex. After voting rights advocates sued over a map passed by the Republicans, a state judge found the legislature had unlawfully ignored a voter-approved anti-gerrymandering commission. The court ordered a new map to be redrawn and rejecting the legislature's proposal. The judge, on November the 10th, adopted a map submitted by the plaintiffs. Now, this new map creates a more competitive, Democratic-leaning district in the Salt Lake City area. The decision has prompted a bit of a backlash from Republicans, of course, with at least one calling for the judge's impeachment. Then in Missouri, you've got a citizen-led effort fighting back directly. After the GOP-controlled legislature passed a new map to dismantle a long-time Democratic district in Kansas City, a group called People Not Politicians organised a veto referendum. They claim they've got over 200,000 signatures to put the gerrymandered map on the ballot, allowing voters to reject it. That has sparked what's been called a bare-knuckle brawl, with the Republican National Committee reportedly sending texts to urge people to remove their names from the petition. So they're worried about it, and the state's Attorney General filing a lawsuit to try and stop the referendum. So how does all this opposition lead to a backfire? Well, it can happen in two main ways, legally and politically. The legal backfire is what we're seeing playing out in Texas and Utah, at least, when parties push for hyper-partisan gerrymanders. They risk crossing the line into illegal racial gerrymandering. When courts strike these maps down, they might force the state to revert to an older, more competitive map, which is what the federal court in Texas ordered. Or it could be worse for the party in power. A court can step in to oversee the drawing of a new map or approve one submitted by plaintiffs, as happened in Utah. In these situations, the priority isn't partisan advantage, it's fairness in following the law. That can actually lead to maps that are more balanced, or in Utah's case, even favour the other party, because Republicans have been doing dodgy redistricting for quite a long time. It can reverse even that. The attempt to gain 5 seats in Texas could end with 0. The effort to keep 4 seats in Utah could result in losing 1. Then there's the political backfire. Aggressive power grabs can energise the opposition, drive voter registration, fuel grassroots movements. We're seeing this in Missouri, where citizens are actively fighting back. Like I say, it's not just Democrat voters that are banding together here. It also encourages an arms race. In response to Republican efforts, Democrats in states like Virginia and Maryland are now exploring plans to redraw their own maps to gain seats, as California have done. A tit-for-tat escalation means that even if some Republican-drawn maps survive court challenges, the gains could be partially or fully neutralised by Democratic countermoves. Some Republicans have even warned this could happen. In Indiana, where Trump allies have been pushing for a gerrymander, the Republican state Senate leader has so far refused, citing concerns about the risks and a lack of votes. So while the strategy to reshape the electoral map for next year is underway, far from a sure thing, it's facing a strong wall of legal challenges, fierce citizen opposition, and a political arms race that could leave the Republicans with fewer gains than intended, or even a net loss. What was presented as a decisive political manoeuvre has turned into a high-stakes gamble, bogged down in courtrooms from Texas to North Carolina, facing voter backlash from Missouri to Utah. Trump could yet see his efforts to rig next year's midterms actually work against him. I mean, as soon as America voted for such an obviously unfit for office president last year, the best hope to knew to him was always going to rest on his own stupid evil tripping himself up. How funny would you find it if Trump's gerrymandering efforts actually ended up producing no net results for Republicans, or even, somehow, a net loss for them instead. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel for more content. Click the bell notification icon so you know when new videos are out. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.